stadium because something bad might happen, that means the bad guys win.
Yeah. All right, Tom, thank you. Great pleasure to have you with us. All right, now, let's move over to Bryan Suits, who is host of The Dark Secret Place, of course, on Saturdays here on KFI. Bryan, are you there?
I am here. Can you hear me?
Great. Yeah. Terrific line going on right now. All right, now let's go into the weeds here. And I'm going to start with a bunch of questions. And I know you have connections. You're getting information about this that most of us don't have. At this point, is it at all possible that this could have happened without a lot of information and a lot of visiting to jihadist websites and the connection between them? When we talk about lone wolf, this doesn't seem to be a lone wolf. There's some connection here.
This is a full-on cell, and there's no more lone wolves, and they probably referred to something on a jihadist website in terms of the model of the bomb, but they were mass producing propane bombs, obviously for vehicular use or a larger plot. Who knows?
But we haven't got any information that in that van there were explosives, any kind of a bomb.
No, we have information that there was not any explosives in the van. They just used it as a battering ram.
You would think if you're going to be a fairly sophisticated jihadist terrorist that attack by the van would end with a massive explosion. And
I think that was probably the plan somehow, somewhere, but whoever their bomb specialist was, as they say, they only make two mistakes. The first mistake is becoming a bomb specialist.
Yeah, and so it's fair to say that you think that the bomb that could have been used was simply, let's say, no longer able to be used. It was blown up in that house.
Yeah, the dumbass blew himself and his buddies up, and then the FBI has a cell down. I mean, best cell, but they have a liaison in Europe, and they're in Madrid, probably going downrange to Barcelona, to the site of that house blowing up, and they're going to help recover any and all laptops. I know you asked Tom Rivers that. He didn't directly answer it, but yes, the United States is helping the Spaniards forensically piece together whatever hard drives are left.
All right, so let's go back to all of the pundits that we heard starting yesterday, Fox, CNN, local pundits, counterterrorism experts, and every one of them agreed, and I think it's obviously an assumption, and we all know about it. These kinds of attacks are virtually impossible to anticipate. Well, not anticipate because you can have good intelligence, but to deal with once they're on your way. I did not hear, and I'm thinking, I got to tell you, the only defense you can possibly do is have stanchions where you have large pedestrian areas and you just block them off in terms of those poles or concrete barriers that you can walk around, but vehicles can't drive through. Is that the way it's going to go?
Yeah, that's what we did in Iraq. It's what we do in Afghanistan. Any military base has what's called a chicane. Meaning that a driver has to swerve left and right, and so he cannot build up a head of steam. He can't go 80 miles an hour like at Nice. And so if you do that, it's a pretty simple measure. And like, for instance, outside LA Live or the Rose Bowl or whatever, and they don't have to be permanent.
Well, you would think that along major pedestrian walkways, the Prado, Las Ramblas, for example, any one of the major ones, the promenade here in Santa Monica, you would be able to block off both ends, meaning that vehicles just can't get in there. And do you see that as the future around the world?
I don't, because there's always going to be a crowd of pedestrians somewhere. They're going to be at the edge of your control point. You can have your last chicane or your last bollard or barrier, and people are going to walk past that. And so it's I think it's a fool's errand to be trying to prevent all pedestrians around the world, ever from being hit. It's going to happen.
No, it's a given. I think all you can do is minimize it. And for example, I'm throwing up the security at airports. It's getting more and more sophisticated, where I'm hearing it's virtually impossible for a terrorist to get on an airplane today, much like what happened at 9/11. And the way now that this seems to be the way terrorism is now being promulgated around the world, vehicle terrorism. And there really isn't defense to that, is there?
No, you go where the crowds are, unless you pass a law making it prohibiting people from getting together in groups of 3 or more. There's just no way. I mean, as we speak, the Finns are just reacting to this opportunity attack that happened 20 minutes ago. A guy with a knife, and he met a cop with a gun, and he brought a knife to a gunfight. But he stabbed apparently 10 or 15 people.
Yeah, and we don't know. You're just getting some information on this, and as it comes in, if you don't mind just jumping in on this. And is the reason that knives are being used, and this is logical to me, is just that weapons are just that much harder in Europe to get hold of.
Yeah, not in Finland, but for immigrants, yes. And knives are terrifying to Westerners. There's something deep in human DNA about fire and edged weapons. They are terrifying to us, and so they use them, and you can get them everywhere. This guy, by the way, I have sound from someone's cell phone from 10 minutes ago in Finland. Guess what? He was yelling Allahu Akbar. And then he caught a bullet.
And the Finnish police, but he had already stabbed how many people?
A pregnant woman, apparently,
Jeez.
and like 10 other people, and there's no word on their condition.
And he was shot and killed by, a single police officer?
I don't know if he was ended, but they ended the stabbing. That's all they're saying. I don't have any word on the suspect.
All right, so as we talk about even stabbings, is it fair to say that other than this cell, and we now know it's a cell, that's fairly unique now, cells, isn't it? Because the how good intelligence is. But if you're talking about guys who just go on websites and decide that they're going to want their 72 virgins, ugly ones usually, that without the intelligence, your history.
Yeah, and the strength of a cell is that you're basically firewalled. You meet your 3 guys, and you make a pact and don't talk about it to anyone. Don't talk about Fight Club, and stop communicating online and things like that. They know that. These are the basics that they have learned over 15 years, Al-Qaeda and now ISIS. So it's hard to break that cell, especially if they're going to do something quickly, like, hey, let's the 3 of us get knives, or let's just ram a bunch of people to the van.
So usually there are no leaders of these cells. They become organic. They are created organically and go, let's just go for it.
We're seeing that it's usually someone who's been in the country for a while, a couple of years, Germany, France, whatever, and they meet like-minded guys, either at the mosque or at a club or whatever. And they say, yeah, I've had it with these arrogant French, too. You want to do something? You want to strike fear into their hearts? And that's all it takes.
And it's obviously fair to say that these are all going to be Muslims.
And they are being told by ISIS, like you and I have talked over the past year, ISIS is a receding tide. They're in the bottom of the ninth, and even they know this, and they're telling these Europeans, don't come here. You're going to be wasting your EU passport. Do something there. And so these guys, for the past year, since July was the Nice truck attack, they have not been going to Syria for a year and a half or so.
And there is actually no connection with ISIS. I mean, no one talks to each other. There is no imam somewhere saying this is what you should do, or talk to me, or they want to contact like Awaki, where people were actually talking to him. None of that happens anymore, right? Well,
not really. Besides general guidelines, use a truck to kill people. All right, tell us how it goes, right, if you get work. That's basically ISIS involvement in this. And so as far as connection or ISIS inspired, like I always say, if they think they're doing it for ISIS, I'm not going to argue with them.
Yeah, for sure. So let's talk about defense. Let's talk about intelligence. How do you at least minimize these if you can?
Arm your society. Not a lot of stabbing attacks in Tel Aviv. There's a few, but you see how they always end. The 16-year-old Palestinian is shot and killed by the armed Israeli. But otherwise, how are you? How are you going to do that? You can't ban knives in L.A.
Well, my understanding is, as far as the Palestinians are concerned, those crazy kids, usually it's the authorities. It's an army person, but then again, everybody's in the army in Israel. But let's talk about being armed. Okay, you have situations like this, and you can have all the weapons in the world that until the van stops, who's going to be able to shoot a van going 40 miles an hour that's zigzagging and hitting people when they're flying all over the place?
I spent a year and a half watching Americans shoot the drivers of trucks in the head.
Okay, these were Army people, though, right?
Sure.
And I'm assuming that were they coming in at 30 miles an hour and zigzagging? That's a hell of a shot.
Coming in at 60 miles an hour.
That's a hell of a shot. That is. So you're saying that with even without proper training, and I'm assuming that if you're getting shot in the head from a distance, obviously someone's been doing a lot of practice and they've been involved in dealing with weapons for a long time.
Well, I mean, it boils down to I don't think a handgun is going to stop a 18-wheeler. You can take your shots at the driver. But believe it or not, the glass in trucks is pretty robust, and I've seen M4 bullets bounce off of it. But at least you have a chance. And then also, a guy with a knife brings a knife to a gunfight at that point.
Oh, and the only thing is, if everybody was armed, which is certainly not going to happen in Europe, I think the only thing would have happened is this guy wouldn't have gotten away. He wouldn't have been able to run, and maybe he would run through a crowd and get the hell out of there.
Oh, you mean yesterday?
Yeah.
Truck driver? I know, yeah.
All right. Thanks, Brian. I know I know you're following this, and as information comes in on that Finnish attack, and I know you have contacts and connections that we don't. If you don't mind contacting Jennifer Jones-Lee, and we'll just jump right in. Okay?
Yeah, and then just to look in the crystal ball, like we've been talking about for the past year, this is going to be happening for the next year or so until ISIS is gone. These guys will get inspired by the next. This guy in Finland obviously was triggered by yesterday, and some guy tomorrow might be triggered by Finland. These are going to happen. They're not happy. It's not 2,000 dead, and it's not even 20 dead. I don't want to say we can take it. It's just that it could be worse.
All right, you said something that I want to follow up on. We've talked about this before. Until ISIS is gone. ISIS is never going to be gone. They've just gone from a caliphate where it was a semi-government and had some land to just a straight-out terrorist organization, nothing more.
Yeah, but they lost their prestige that they had 3 years ago when they were the baddest boys on the block. Everything they promised fell apart. They didn't know what they were doing, and they just lost their asses.
Yeah, but it doesn't stop the attacks. It's not going to stop the terrorists. It's not going to stop the lone wolf. Those are increasing like crazy.
But I think it'll stop the inspiration because this generation is getting older, and whatever the next thing might be, that might inspire the 14-year-olds today. But these guys, they're going to go away.
All right. Thanks, Brian. So we'll hear more from you as this Finnish attack, which we just got the information probably 20 minutes ago that there is another, and I think it's fair to say, a terrorist attack because of what Brian said. He brought up some some audio where this stabber, where this terrorist was screaming Allahu Akbar as he was stabbing several people. He has been shot. He was stopped by ostensibly a police officer. We haven't gotten the information he's been killed yet, have we, Jennifer? Do we know if he has been killed? Because I know this is just the first few minutes.
Yeah, so this is just the first few minutes. Police in Finland say that they've shot a man in the leg after he was suspected of stabbing all these people in Turku. They say that witnesses are saying they saw several people lying on the ground, and there's a tabloid media there that's reporting 6 people were injured, 1 man, 5 women, and one of the women was with a stroller, and all they're saying that the attacker had a large knife.
Okay. So as that story comes in, of course, we'll follow that and report on it. Now, coming up, a story that was on the certainly local news last night, and that's Lin-Manuel Miranda, who wrote and starred in Hamilton. He's probably become one of the most popular people on the planet now. He came to San Fernando High School, Panorama High School, in front of 2,000 kids, or 1,000 kids, and I was there. I was a guest of the Congressman Tony Cardenas, so there weren't too many adults there. It was mainly kids. And I have to tell you, it was the weirdest thing that I've ever been involved with. It is, okay, now what kind of thing. And I'm going to share that story with you because it's both good and weird and wonderful and bizarre. And that's coming up. KFI AM 640.